I still hear the breathing sometimes. Deep, rhythmic, impossibly vast. It comes to me in the quiet moments when the world around me falls silent. And I know with absolute certainty that what we found beneath the Antarctic ice was never meant to be discovered. My name is Aiden. I am 32 years old, and this is the story of how I learned that some doors should never be opened, and some things sleeping in the dark should never be awakened. The Amundsen Fletcher research station sat like a metal tumor on the vast white nothing of the Antarctic plateau. When I first arrived in late October, the isolation hit me before the cold did. I had signed up for a 6-month rotation as a meteorological technician, eager to escape a failed relationship and a dead-end job in Seattle. Antarctica seemed like the perfect place to disappear for a while. I had no idea how right I was. Before I go any further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt truly alone? Not just lonely, but utterly separated from the rest of humanity? If you have stories about isolation or strange experiences in remote places, share them in the comments below. I read every single one, and after what I went through, I find comfort in knowing others understand what it means to be far from home, far from help. There were 9 of us at the station when I arrived. Dr. Sarah Reeves ran the operation, a weathered glaciologist in her late 50s who had spent more winters in Antarctica than most people spend years in college. Then there was Tommy, our communications specialist, a cheerful guy from Texas who never stopped talking about barbecue. Rachel handled logistics and supplies. James and Philip were climate researchers. David was our mechanic. Dr. Lisa Montgomery studied ice cores. And finally, there was Vincent, our pilot, who flew the Twin Otter supply plane when weather permitted. The station itself was a series of connected modules, painted bright orange against the white expanse. We had living quarters, laboratories, storage facilities, a greenhouse, and a communications hub. Everything was designed to withstand temperatures that could drop to negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind was the real enemy, though. It could howl for days without stopping, shaking the entire structure, making sleep nearly impossible. My job was straightforward. I monitored weather patterns, launched atmospheric balloons, maintained the automated weather stations scattered across our research area, and compiled data for transmission to the National Weather Service. It was tedious work, but I found peace in the routine. Wake at 7 a.m., breakfast at 8 a.m., work until 6 p.m., dinner at 7 p.m., recreation time until 10 p.m., sleep. Day after day, the same pattern, only the data changing. The first month passed without incident. I grew accustomed to the cold, to the endless white, to the way sound traveled strangely across the ice. I learned to read the sky, to predict storms hours before they arrived. I made friends with the crew, sharing meals in the cramped dining area, watching old movies on someone's laptop, playing cards to pass the long evenings. It was mid-November when things began to change. I was in the meteorology lab, reviewing seismic data from our ground sensors. We monitored seismic activity as part of our research, tracking ice movements and potential calving events. The sensors formed a grid extending 30 miles in every direction from the station. Most days, the readings were minimal, just the normal settling and shifting of the ice sheet. But that day, something was different. The seismograph showed a pattern I had never seen before. A rhythmic pulse, deep and regular, coming from approximately 15 miles northwest of our position. It was not an earthquake. The frequency was wrong. It was not ice movement either. This was something else, something that repeated every 43 seconds like clockwork. "Sarah, you need to see this," I called across the lab. Dr. Reeves came over, her reading glasses perched on her nose. She studied the readings in silence for several minutes, her frown deepening. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. "I first noticed it about 2 hours ago. It has not stopped." She traced the waveform with her finger. "This is biological." I stared at her. "What?" "The pattern, the regularity. This is a breathing rhythm, Aiden. Something down there is breathing." The room suddenly felt colder. "That is impossible. Nothing could survive under 2 miles of ice." I know what the data says. She tapped the screen. And the data says something is breathing under the ice 15 miles from here. We called an emergency meeting. The entire crew gathered in the common area, faces showing various degrees of skepticism and concern as Sarah presented the findings. It could be a geological phenomenon we have not documented before, James suggested. Geothermal vents can create rhythmic patterns. Not like this, Sarah insisted. I have studied Antarctic geology for 30 years. This is not geological. So what are you saying? Tommy asked. There is some kind of animal under the ice. I am saying we need to investigate. Vincent shook his head. We are not equipped for that kind of expedition. We would need drilling equipment, a full support team. We have ground-penetrating radar, Lisa said quietly. We could at least get a better look at what is down there before we make any decisions. After 2 hours of debate, we agreed. The next day, weather permitting, we would take the snowcats out to the source of the signal and use our radar equipment to map what lay beneath the ice. That night I could not sleep. I lay in my bunk, listening to the wind howl outside, thinking about Sarah's words. Something is breathing under the ice. It was absurd. It was impossible, but the data did not lie. At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went to the lab. The seismic readings were still there, steady and unchanging. 43 seconds between each pulse, like a massive heartbeat deep in the ice. I pulled up the ground-penetrating radar data we had collected over the past month, looking for anything unusual in that area. What I found made my blood run cold. There was a cavity, a massive hollow space in the ice, roughly 2 miles down and extending for almost a quarter mile in diameter. Our previous scans had shown it, but we had assumed it was a subglacial lake, common enough in Antarctica. But looking at it now, with the breathing signal coming from the exact same location, it took on a different character. The cavity was not natural. The walls were too smooth, too regular. And there was something else, something the computer had initially classified as ice formations. But adjusting the resolution, I could see they were not formations at all. They were ribs, massive curved structures that could only be ribs. We were not looking at a cave. We were looking at the interior of something's chest. The expedition departed at 9 a.m. Sarah, Lisa, Vincent, David, and I loaded into 2 snowcats with the ground-penetrating radar equipment, emergency supplies, and enough fuel for a 30-hour round trip. The sky was clear, a rare gift in Antarctica, and the temperature was a relatively balmy -40 degrees. The journey was surreal. We drove across endless white, the horizon blending with the sky until it was impossible to tell where Earth ended and heaven began. The only sounds were the rumble of the engines and the crunch of snow under the treads. If you are enjoying this story so far, do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not already, because what I am about to tell you gets much, much worse. And trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. We reached the coordinates at 2 p.m. The ice here looked no different from anywhere else, a flat expanse of white stretching in every direction. But underneath, the seismic sensors confirmed what we already knew. The breathing continued, steady and deep. David and Vincent set up the radar equipment while Lisa prepared the recording devices. Sarah and I marked out a grid pattern for the scan, using GPS coordinates to ensure accuracy. The process took 3 hours, slowly dragging the radar unit across the ice, building up a 3-dimensional image of what lay below. When the scan was complete, we huddled around the laptop in the back of the snowcat, watching as Lisa compiled the data into a single image. What appeared on the screen defied comprehension. It was massive. The cavity extended from approximately 8,000 feet below the surface down to 12,000 feet, a space large enough to contain multiple football stadiums. And inside that space, the radar had captured something with density readings consistent with organic matter. The structure had a distinct shape, a central mass, perhaps 800 feet long and 300 feet wide. Extending from this central mass were appendages, 6 of them, each over 400 feet in length. The ribs I had seen on the earlier scans were visible here too, massive curved bones that followed a distinctly biological pattern. "My God," Vincent whispered, "what is that thing?" Sarah zoomed in on the central mass. The radar showed internal structures, chambers and passages that could only be organs. And deep in the center, a large hollow space that expanded and contracted in rhythm with the seismic pulses we had been recording. A lung, we were looking at a lung. "It is sleeping," Lisa said, her voice barely audible. "Whatever it is in some kind of hibernation." "How long has it been down there?" I asked. Sarah pulled up the ice core data on another laptop. Based on the ice layers above it, I would estimate at least 50,000 years, maybe longer. This section of the ice sheet is some of the oldest on the continent. David shook his head in disbelief. "Nothing can survive frozen for 50,000 years. Tardigrades can," Lisa countered. "And there are theories about much larger organisms entering states of cryptobiosis under extreme conditions." "Tardigrades are microscopic," David shot back. "This thing is the size of a skyscraper." We sat in silence, watching the image on the screen. Every 43 seconds, the central chamber expanded slightly, then contracted, breathing, living, waiting. "We need to report this," Vincent said finally. "This is way beyond our scope. We need to contact McMurdo, get a proper team out here." Sarah nodded slowly. "You are right. We document what we have found and let the experts decide what to do next." But as we packed up the equipment, preparing for the journey back, I could not shake the feeling that we had made a terrible mistake. We had gone looking for answers and found something that raised questions humanity was not ready to ask. Some things, I thought, are buried under miles of ice for a reason. The return journey was tense. Nobody spoke much. We were each lost in our own thoughts, trying to process what we had discovered. The sun was setting by the time we reached the station, casting long shadows across the ice. In Antarctica, sunset in November meant the sun would not rise again for months. We were entering the long polar night. Tommy met us at the door, his face pale. "You need to see this." We followed him to the communications hub. The room was filled with monitors and radio equipment, our lifeline to the outside world. But every screen showed the same thing: static. "I lost all satellite contact 3 hours ago," Tommy said. "I have tried every frequency, every backup system. Nothing. We are completely cut off." "Is it the equipment?" Vincent asked. Tommy shook his head. "I have run every diagnostic. Everything is working perfectly on our end. It is like something is blocking the signal." I felt my stomach drop. "When did this start?" Tommy checked his log. 2:47 p.m. I looked at Sarah. That was exactly when we had completed the radar scan, when we had mapped the entire structure of the thing beneath the ice. "It knows," Lisa whispered. "It knows we found it." "That is ridiculous," Vincent said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It is a coincidence. Solar flare, magnetic storm, something." But I checked the atmospheric data. There was no solar activity, no magnetic anomalies. The conditions were perfect for communication, yet we were as isolated as if we had been transported to another planet. That night, the breathing changed. I was monitoring the seismic sensors at 11 p.m. when I noticed the pattern shifting. The interval between breaths was decreasing. 43 seconds became 42, then 41, then 40. "It is waking up," I said to no one in particular. Over the next hour, I watched the intervals continue to decrease. 39 seconds, 38, 37. Whatever was down there, our presence had disturbed it. Our radar scans had penetrated its tomb, and now it was responding. By midnight, the breathing had stabilized at 35 seconds between each pulse. But that was not the worst part. The seismic sensors were picking up something else now. Movement. The appendages we had seen on the radar were shifting, flexing, testing their range of motion after millennia of stillness. I ran to find Sarah. She was in her quarters, staring at her own laptop, tracking the same data. "We need to leave," I said. "We need to evacuate the station right now." She looked up at me with haunted eyes. "And go where, Aiden? We are 800 miles from McMurdo, in winter, in darkness, without communication. If we leave the station, we die. If we stay here, we have food, fuel, and shelter. Our best chance is to wait for spring, for the supply plane. If we can restore communications, we call for emergency evacuation. But running out into the Antarctic night is suicide." She was right, and I knew it. But the thought of staying here, with that thing waking up beneath the ice, filled me with a primal terror I had never experienced before. The crew gathered for an emergency meeting at 1 a.m. Sarah explained the situation as calmly as she could, though I could see the fear in everyone's eyes. "Our priority is restoring communications," she said. "Tommy, I want you working on that around the clock. Everyone else, we maintain our normal routines as much as possible. We conserve fuel, we ration food if necessary, and we wait for the supply window in January." "And what about that thing?" David asked, gesturing toward the floor, toward the miles of ice beneath us. "We monitor it, we track any changes, but we do not panic." But panic was already setting in. I could see it in the way people glanced at each other, in the tremor in Tommy's hands, in the way Rachel had started biting her nails until they bled. Over the next 3 days, things deteriorated rapidly. The breathing continued to accelerate, 30 seconds, 28, 25, and the movement was increasing. The seismic sensors showed the massive appendages extending outward, pushing against the ice that had imprisoned them for so long. On the 4th day, we felt the first tremor. It was 4 a.m. when the entire station shook, knocking equipment off tables and sending people tumbling from their bunks. The tremor lasted 15 seconds, then stopped as suddenly as it had started. "Icequake," Vincent said, but nobody believed him. The tremors came more frequently after that. Every few hours the ground would shake, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. We could hear it through the walls, through the floor, a deep rumbling that seemed to come from the center of the earth itself. On the 5th day, the ice began to crack. I was outside, checking the weather instruments when I heard it. A sound like thunder, but wrong, deeper and more prolonged. I looked out across the ice and saw a line of darkness spreading across the white surface, a crack that extended from the horizon toward the station. I ran inside, shouting for everyone to come see. We gathered at the windows, watching in horror as the crack widened, chunks of ice the size of houses falling into the growing chasm. The crack stopped about half a mile from the station, but we could see into it now, see down into the ice, into depths that should have been solid and stable. And far below, impossibly far, there was a faint blue glow. "What is that light?" Rachel asked. Nobody answered. We all knew. It was coming from the cavity, from the space where the thing was waking up. Some kind of bioluminescence, perhaps, or something else entirely. But it was proof, undeniable proof, that what we had found was alive. That night, the nightmares began. I dreamed of being underwater, suspended in a vast dark ocean. Something enormous moved beneath me, its bulk displacing currents that pulled at my body. I could not see it clearly, just glimpses of pale flesh, of appendages lined with structures that might have been mouths or eyes or something worse. And always, the breathing, deep and rhythmic, surrounding me, filling me with dread. I woke at 5 a.m., drenched in sweat despite the cold. Stumbling to the common area, I found Lisa there, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. "You had it too?" she asked. I nodded, the dream about the water. Yes, the thing underneath, watching us. Over breakfast, we discovered everyone had experienced the same dream. The same dark water, the same presence, the same terror. Tommy suggested it was just stress, our minds processing the same fear. But I knew better. The thing was reaching out to us. Not physically, not yet, but mentally. It was aware of us, and it wanted us to know it was aware. The breathing interval reached 20 seconds on the 6th day. The tremors were now constant, a low vibration that made everything in the station rattle. The crack in the ice had widened, and we could see the blue glow more clearly now, pulsing in rhythm with the breathing. Tommy was going mad trying to restore communications. He had disassembled and reassembled every piece of equipment, checked every connection, tried every possible frequency. Nothing worked. We were completely isolated, trapped with a monster stirring beneath our feet. On the 7th day, Philip disappeared. He had gone to check the backup generator in one of the outer modules at 10 a.m. When he did not return after an hour, we went looking for him. The module was empty, the generator running normally, but Philip was gone. We searched the entire station, every room, every storage area, every crawlspace. Nothing. It was as if he had simply vanished. He must have gone outside, Vincent said. Maybe he snapped, tried to walk out into the ice. But Philip's cold weather gear was still hanging in the locker. His boots were still by the door. If he had gone outside, he had done so in his regular clothes, which meant he would have frozen to death in minutes. We never found his body. That evening, we held a meeting to discuss what to do. The situation was falling apart. We were trapped, cut off from the world, with something waking up beneath us and one of our crew missing. We need to destroy it, David said suddenly. Whatever that thing is, we need to kill it before it gets out. How exactly do you propose we do that? Sarah asked. It is under 2 miles of ice. We do not have weapons. We do not have explosives. We have fuel, David countered. We have enough diesel to keep this station running for 8 months. We pour it down that crack, set it on fire. The heat could kill it, or at least drive it deeper. Or it could make things worse, Lisa said. We do not know what we are dealing with. It could be intelligent. It could retaliate. The argument continued for hours, going in circles, nobody willing to make a decision that could doom us all. Finally, we agreed to wait 1 more day to see if the situation stabilized. If Tommy could restore communications, we could call for help. If Philip reappeared, we would know we were just dealing with stress and isolation. But neither of those things happened. At 2 a.m. on the 8th day, the breathing stopped. I was in the lab, monitoring the sensors, when I noticed the seismic readings flatline. The regular pulse that had been our constant companion for over a week simply ended. The silence was somehow worse than the noise had been. I waited, watching the screen, praying for the pattern to resume, but it did not. The sensors showed nothing. No movement, no tremors, nothing. It is gone, I whispered. It went somewhere else. But where? And more importantly, where was it going? I got my answer at 2:17 a.m. when the station's power went out. We had 3 backup systems, each independent, each capable of sustaining the station for weeks. All 3 failed simultaneously. We were plunged into darkness, the temperature immediately beginning to drop as the heating system died. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in a sickly red glow. I could hear shouting from other parts of the station, people calling out in confusion and fear. David, our mechanic, ran to check the generators. He returned 10 minutes later, his face ashen. They are destroyed, he said. All 3 of them, torn apart from the inside like something reached into them and ripped out the critical components. That is impossible, Vincent said. The generators are in sealed rooms. Nothing could get to them without us seeing it. But something had, and as we stood there in the red emergency lighting, I felt the temperature continue to drop. Without heat, we had maybe 12 hours before the cold killed us. We needed to fix the generators, or we needed to find another way to survive. Sarah organized us into teams. Vincent, David, and James would work on the generators. Tommy would continue trying to restore communications. The rest of us would gather supplies, prepare the smallest module as a refuge we could heat with portable burners if necessary. I was helping Rachel move food supplies when I heard the sound. It came from below, from underneath the floor, a scraping, sliding sound like something massive dragging itself through the ice, and beneath that a new sound, a clicking, a chittering like the vocalizations of some vast insect. "Do you hear that?" Rachel whispered. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The sound moved through the station, passing beneath us, heading toward the generator room where Vincent and the others were working. I dropped the supply box and ran, Rachel close behind me. We reached the generator room just as Vincent came running out, his eyes wide with terror. "Get out," he screamed. "Everyone get out." Behind him, I could see into the room. The floor was cracked, ice and metal buckled upward. And reaching through that crack was something pale and glistening, an appendage covered in what looked like barnacles or perhaps eyes, dozens of them, all moving independently, all seeing. The appendage withdrew, sliding back down through the crack with a wet slithering sound. We ran, all of us, abandoning the generator room, sealing the bulkhead door behind us. "It is inside," Vincent gasped. "That thing is inside the station." We retreated to the main common area, barricading the doors with whatever furniture we could move. The emergency lights cast everything in shades of red and black, making shadows dance in corners, making every sound seem amplified and threatening. Lisa pulled up the seismic data on a laptop running on battery power. The readings showed the thing had moved, had somehow tunneled through the ice much faster than should have been possible. It was now directly beneath the station, maybe 500 feet down, and it was still moving, still exploring. "Why is it coming for us?" Rachel asked, her voice breaking. "We woke it up," Sarah said quietly. "We disturbed it after 50,000 years of sleep. Maybe it is curious, maybe it is angry, or maybe it is just hungry." The temperature in the common area had dropped to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. We were all wearing every layer we had, huddled together for warmth. The portable heaters we had set up were barely making a difference. At 4 a.m., we heard the screaming. It came from the communications hub, where Tommy had insisted on staying, still trying desperately to restore contact with the outside world. The screams were brief, cut off suddenly, replaced by that clicking, chittering sound. None of us moved. We sat in the red darkness, listening to the sounds of Tommy being taken, and we did nothing because there was nothing we could do. When the sounds finally stopped, Vincent made a move toward the door. "We have to check," he said. "He might still be alive." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We stay here, we stay together." But Vincent was already at the door, unlatching it, pulling it open. The hallway beyond was dark, the emergency lights there having failed. He pulled out a flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. "Tommy," he called. "Tommy, can you hear me?" From the darkness, something clicked in response. Vincent took a step back, but it was too late. The appendage shot out of the darkness, wrapping around his waist, pulling him off his feet. He had time for one short scream before he was dragged into the blackness, the flashlight falling to the floor, its beam illuminating nothing but empty hallway. David slammed the door shut, but we all knew it was pointless. The thing could reach us any time it wanted. The station was its hunting ground now, and we were trapped inside with it. There were 6 of us left: Sarah, Lisa, Rachel, James, David, and me. 6 people against something that had survived for 50,000 years beneath the ice, something that had torn through generators and taken 3 of our crew in less than 2 hours. "We need to get out of the station," James said. "We need to risk the cold. It is our only chance." "We will freeze to death in minutes," Lisa countered. "Better to freeze than to end up like Tommy and Vincent." The argument was interrupted by the lights going out completely. The last of the emergency power had failed. We were in total darkness except for a few flashlights and headlamps. In the darkness, the clicking sounds grew louder. The thing was moving through the station, searching, hunting, and we had nowhere left to run. It was Rachel who made the decision for us. She stood up, her headlamp casting wild shadows, and walked to the outer door that led to the vehicle bay. "I am not waiting here to die," she said. "I am going to the snowcat. If you want to live, come with me." It was a desperate plan. The vehicle bay was 3 modules away, connected by pressurized corridors. We would have to move through the station, exposed with that thing hunting us. But staying here meant certain death. One by one, we stood. Sarah grabbed her laptop with the seismic data. David picked up a toolkit, the closest thing to a weapon we had. Lisa took emergency supplies from the pile we had gathered. James and I grabbed flashlights and spare batteries. Rachel opened the door, and we stepped into the darkness. The journey through the station was a nightmare. Every shadow could hide death. Every sound made us freeze, hearts pounding, waiting to be grabbed by those pale appendages. The clicking followed us, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, echoing through the metal corridors. We made it through the first module without incident. The second module was where we ran into problems. The corridor was blocked. Ice had pushed up through the floor, buckling the metal, creating a maze of twisted debris and frozen water. We would have to climb over it, move slowly and carefully, making us vulnerable. James went first, testing each handhold, each foothold. Rachel followed, then Lisa. I was helping Sarah start the climb when I heard David shout behind us. "It is coming, move." I looked back and saw the appendage sliding through the darkness. Pale and glistening in our flashlight beams, coming fast. David swung his toolkit at it, the metal striking with a wet thud. The appendage recoiled, but another one appeared and another, reaching for him from multiple directions. "David, run," I shouted. He tried. He dropped the toolkit and ran toward us, toward the climb over the debris. But the appendages were faster. They wrapped around his legs, his arms, lifting him off the floor. His screams echoed through the corridor as he was pulled backward into the darkness, into whatever maw waited there. We climbed. We did not look back. We could not. The sounds of David's death followed us, but we kept moving, kept climbing, driven by pure survival instinct. We reached the vehicle bay at 5 a.m. 5 of us now, 5 survivors out of 9. The bay was bitterly cold, well below -20 degrees. The snowcats sat waiting, frosted over, their batteries likely frozen solid. "Check the keys," Sarah said through chattering teeth. "We need to get one of these started." James found keys in the bay office and ran to the first snowcat. The engine turned over once, twice, then died. The cold had drained the batteries. "Try the other one," Rachel shouted. But the clicking was getting closer. The thing had followed us, was moving through the station, coming for the bay. James jumped into the second snowcat, turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, and mercifully roared to life. We piled in, 5 of us cramming into a vehicle meant for 4, slamming the doors shut just as the first appendage reached the bay. "Drive," Sarah screamed. "Just drive." James hit the accelerator, and the snowcat lurched forward, crashing through the bay doors and out into the Antarctic night. The cold hit us immediately. Even with the vehicle's heater, the temperature inside was barely above 0. But we were moving, putting distance between us and the station, between us and that thing. I looked back through the rear window. The station lights were completely dark now, a black shape against the starlit sky. And around it, the ice was moving, buckling, cracking. Something massive was pushing up from below, breaking free of its prison. We drove for an hour, heading south toward McMurdo, though we knew it was hopeless. We were 800 miles away, in winter darkness, with limited fuel and supplies. But anywhere was better than the station. At 6 a.m., the engine started to sputter. James checked the fuel gauge. "We have maybe another hour of driving," he said. "Then we are on foot." Nobody spoke. We all knew what that meant. On foot, in -40-degree temperatures in the dark, we would last maybe 2 hours before hypothermia killed us. But we kept driving. What else could we do? Lisa had her laptop out, checking the seismic data on battery power. Her face went pale as she studied the readings. "It is following us," she whispered. I looked at the screen. There was movement, a massive presence moving through the ice, tracking us, staying parallel to our course about 2 miles to the east. "How fast is it moving?" Sarah asked. Lisa did the calculations. "Roughly 30 miles per hour, faster than we are going." "It is playing with us," Rachel said, her voice dead. "It could catch us any time it wants. It is just playing with us." She was right. I could feel it, a presence in my mind, a vast intelligence watching us flee, amused by our attempts at survival. The nightmares had been real. This thing was not just a creature. It was aware, possibly intelligent, and it was enjoying the hunt. The fuel ran out at 7 a.m. The engine died, and we coasted to a stop in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by darkness and ice and stars. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then James opened the door. "We walk," he said. "Maybe we make it, maybe we do not, but we do not sit here and wait to die." We gathered what supplies we could carry, emergency blankets, water bottles, a few energy bars. It was pathetic, insufficient, but it was all we had. As we prepared to leave the snowcat, I felt the ice beneath us begin to vibrate. The clicking was back, louder now, coming from all around us. "Run," Sarah said quietly, "just run." We ran. We ran into the darkness, stumbling over ice ridges, sliding down slopes, the cold biting at our faces, our lungs burning with each breath. Behind us, I could hear the ice cracking, could feel the vibrations of something massive moving beneath the surface. Rachel fell first. She tripped, went down hard, her ankle twisting at an angle that made me sick. James and I pulled her up, supporting her between us, but our pace slowed dramatically. The clicking grew louder, closer. "Leave me," Rachel gasped. "You will move faster without me." "Shut up and keep moving," James said through gritted teeth. But we all knew she was right. With Rachel injured, we were too slow. The thing would catch us in minutes. Lisa stopped running. She turned to face the darkness behind us, pulling off her backpack. "Go," she said. "I will buy you time." "Lisa, no," Sarah started. "Go," Lisa screamed, and there was such finality in her voice that we obeyed. We ran, leaving Lisa standing alone in the darkness. Behind us, I heard her start shouting, banging metal tools together, making noise to draw the thing to her. Then her voice cut off, replaced by that wet clicking sound, and we ran harder. We ran until our legs gave out, until we collapsed in the snow, gasping for air, our bodies shutting down from the cold and exhaustion. 4 of us left now. 4 survivors huddled together in the Antarctic night, waiting for death. But death did not come. The clicking stopped. The vibration ceased. The presence in my mind withdrew, leaving only silence and cold. "Why did it stop?" Rachel whispered. Sarah checked her laptop, the battery nearly dead. The seismic readings showed the thing had stopped moving. It was stationary about a mile behind us, just waiting. "I do not understand," James said. "It had us. Why did not it finish us?" I looked up at the sky, at the stars blazing in the darkness, and I understood. "It is not hunting us anymore," I said. "It does not need to. The cold will kill us. It is just waiting." We sat in silence, watching the battery on Sarah's laptop die, the screen going dark. We were out of options, out of hope. At 8 a.m., Rachel closed her eyes and did not open them again. The cold had taken her. James checked her pulse, shook his head. 3 left. At 9 a.m., James stood up. "I am going back," he said. "I am going back to face that thing. I would rather die fighting than freeze out here." "James, do not." Sarah reached for him, but he was already walking away, heading back toward the station, toward the thing waiting in the darkness. We watched him until he disappeared into the black, and then we were alone. Just Sarah and me, two people sitting on the ice at the bottom of the world, waiting to die. Sarah pulled me close, sharing what little body heat we had left. "I am sorry, Aiden," she whispered. "I should never have approved that expedition. I should have left it alone." "We did not know," I said, though my words were slurred from the cold. "How could we have known? Some things are not meant to be found. Some doors are not meant to be opened." She was quiet for a moment, then added, "Do you believe in God, Aiden?" "I do not know, maybe. I hope there is something after this. I hope this is not the end." We sat together as the cold deepened, as our bodies slowly shut down. I could feel my thoughts becoming sluggish, my vision blurring. This was it. This was how I would die, frozen on the Antarctic ice, eaten by a creature that should not exist. But then, impossibly, I saw light. At first I thought it was a hallucination, the final trick my dying brain was playing on me. But Sarah saw it too. She lifted her head, staring at the horizon. "Lights," she whispered. "Aiden, those are vehicle lights." Two sets of headlights were approaching from the south, moving fast across the ice. As they got closer, I could see they were snowcats, proper expedition vehicles, much larger than ours had been. The vehicles stopped beside us, and people in heavy cold weather gear jumped out. Strong hands lifted me, carried me into the warmth of the vehicle. I heard voices, questions, but I could not process them. I was too cold, too exhausted, too traumatized. I passed out. I woke in a hospital bed in McMurdo Station. The doctor told me I had been unconscious for 3 days, recovering from severe hypothermia and frostbite. I had lost 2 toes on my left foot, but otherwise I would recover physically. Mentally was another story. Sarah was in the next room. She had fared better than me, losing only the tip of one finger. When I was finally able to walk, I went to see her. "How did they find us?" I asked. She looked older than I remembered, her eyes haunted. The communication blackout triggered an automatic alert at McMurdo. When they could not reach us for 48 hours, they sent a rescue team. They found us just in time. "And the station?" Her face darkened. "Gone. The entire structure collapsed into the ice. They said it looked like a sinkhole, like the ground just swallowed it whole." "And the thing did they find?" "They found nothing, Aiden, just a hole in the ice. No bodies, no equipment, no trace of that creature. The official report says it was a geological event, a catastrophic ice collapse." "But that is not true. You know that is not true." She met my eyes. "I know, but who would believe us? A monster under the ice. A creature that survived for 50,000 years. They would say we hallucinated from isolation and stress. They would say we made it up to cover our mistakes. So we just let it go, pretend it never happened. What choice do we have?" She looked away. 7 people are dead, Aiden. 7 people died because I authorized that expedition. I have to live with that, but I cannot change it. I spent 3 more weeks at McMurdo going through debriefings, medical evaluations, and psychological assessments. They asked about the station, about what happened, about my crew mates. I told them we had a catastrophic equipment failure, that people made bad decisions in the panic, that some went outside and froze, others got trapped in the collapse. I lied. I lied because Sarah was right. Nobody would believe the truth. Finally, they cleared me to return to the United States. I flew out of Antarctica on a cold July morning, watching the ice sheet fall away beneath me, knowing that somewhere down there, deep in the frozen darkness, something ancient was still alive, still waiting. Back in Seattle, I tried to return to normal life. I got a new job, a new apartment, tried to reconnect with old friends. But the nightmares never stopped. Every night I dreamed of dark water, of pale appendages reaching for me, of that clicking, chittering sound echoing through metal corridors. And sometimes, lying awake at 3 a.m., I could still feel it. A presence at the edge of my consciousness, vast and patient and aware, watching me, remembering me. 6 months after I returned home, I received a package. No return address, just a postmark from Chile. Inside was a USB drive and a note in handwriting I did not recognize. "You need to see this." I plugged the drive into my laptop. It contained a single video file dated 3 days earlier. The footage was shaky, shot from what looked like a research vessel. The camera focused on the ocean, on chunks of ice floating in dark water, Antarctic waters from the context. Then the camera zoomed in on one particular iceberg. It was massive, easily the size of a city block. And embedded in the ice, visible even at distance, was something pale and organic. An appendage, maybe, or part of a larger structure. The thing in the ice had broken free. The video ended with the camera suddenly jerking downward toward the water. I could see something moving beneath the surface, something vast and dark, disappearing into the depths. Then the video cut out. I sat staring at the blank screen, my hands shaking. It was out. Whatever we had found beneath the Antarctic ice had escaped its prison and was now loose in the world's oceans, deep enough to avoid detection, large enough to be mistaken for natural phenomena, patient enough to wait, to plan, to prepare. I tried to track down who sent me the video, but the trail went cold. I searched the news for reports of strange sightings, unexplained disappearances of ships, anything that might indicate the thing was active. I found plenty of stories, but nothing conclusive, nothing that could not be explained away. Sarah died a year later. The official cause was suicide, sleeping pills, and alcohol, but I knew better. She could not live with the guilt, with the knowledge of what we had unleashed. Her last email to me, sent the night before she died, contained only 3 words: "It is hunting." I started researching, digging into archives, looking for any historical record that might reference the creature. I found scattered mentions across different cultures. Ancient sailors speaking of something vast in the southern seas. Antarctic explorers in the early 1900s reporting strange sounds in the ice. Even Captain Scott's expedition journals mentioned unnatural movements beneath the Ross ice shelf. Most disturbing were the cave paintings I found referenced in an obscure anthropology journal. Paintings from Patagonia, created by indigenous peoples thousands of years ago. They showed a creature with multiple appendages, emerging from the water, destroying villages. The paintings called it Crewank, which roughly translated to the Old Hunger. The Old Hunger, a creature that had existed for tens of thousands of years, possibly longer. A creature that had been worshipped and feared by ancient peoples, then forgotten as it slumbered beneath the ice, until we woke it up. Before I wrap this up, I want to ask you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because what I am about to tell you next is the real reason I am sharing this account, and it is something everyone needs to know. I continued my research for 3 years. I became obsessed, neglecting my job, my relationships, everything except understanding what we had found. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to see the pattern. There have been 47 unexplained disappearances of ships in the Southern Ocean over the past 3 years. 47 vessels that simply vanished without distress calls, without wreckage, without any trace. The official explanations range from rogue waves to equipment failure to human error. But I knew the Old Hunger was feeding. And it was not staying in the south. The Gulf Stream, the ocean currents, they flow north. Each month, the disappearances were occurring further from Antarctica, first off the coast of Argentina, then Brazil, then the Caribbean. Last month, a fishing trawler disappeared off the coast of North Carolina. 3 weeks ago, a research vessel vanished near Cape Cod. 1 week ago, a yacht carrying a family of 4 disappeared in waters off Long Island. The Old Hunger was coming north, following the food supply, learning the patterns of human activity, adapting to its new environment after millennia of sleep. I tried to warn people. I went to the Coast Guard, to the Navy, to anyone who would listen. I showed them my research, the patterns, the evidence. They smiled politely and showed me the door. Some suggested I seek psychiatric help. One officer told me I had an overactive imagination. So I am warning you instead. I am putting this account out into the world because people need to know the truth, even if they think it is just a story, just entertainment. Maybe someone will listen. Maybe someone with the resources and authority to do something about it will take it seriously. If you live near the ocean, if you see something strange in the water, something that does not belong, report it. Document it. Do not go near it. The old hunger is patient, but it is also opportunistic. It will take whatever food is available. And it considers us food. I moved to Kansas 2 months ago, as far from the ocean as I can get in the continental United States. I tell myself I am safe here, that the creature cannot reach me in the heartland. But I know the truth. The ocean covers 70% of the Earth's surface. There is nowhere truly safe, not anymore. The nightmares are getting worse. The presence in my mind is growing stronger. Sometimes I swear I can hear that clicking sound, that chittering vocalization, even though I am 1,000 miles from the nearest ocean. Sometimes I look at maps and see patterns in coastlines, in river systems, in the underground aquifers that connect across continents. Water is everywhere, and the old hunger knows how to travel through water. Last night I had the worst dream yet. I was standing at the edge of a vast ocean, watching the water recede, pulling back like the tide before a tsunami. But instead of water rushing back, something else emerged. Something vast and pale, with appendages lined with eyes, with a body that seemed to stretch to the horizon. The old hunger, fully revealed, no longer hiding in the depths. And in the dream, it spoke to me. Not with words, but with images, with feelings, with pure transferred thought. It showed me what Earth looked like 50,000 years ago when it last walked the surface. It showed me the civilizations it consumed, the species it drove to extinction, the terror it spread across the prehistoric world. And it showed me the future, our cities flooding as it rises from the depths, our ships, our planes, our satellites, all of it useless against something that evolved in conditions more hostile than anything we can imagine. The old hunger reclaiming the world it once ruled. Then it showed me one final image. Me older, standing alone in a flooded city, water up to my knees, watching as pale appendages rose from the depths around me. And in that moment I felt its hunger, its patient, eternal hunger. I understood that it had been watching me since that day in Antarctica, waiting, planning, keeping me alive because I was useful somehow. I woke up screaming. It is 4 a.m. now as I write this final entry. I am sitting in my apartment in Wichita, Kansas, as far from the ocean as I thought I could get. But 5 minutes ago I felt a tremor, a small earthquake barely noticeable, but the pattern was familiar. The rhythm was familiar. 43 seconds. That is how long it has been since I felt the last tremor. And if I am right, in exactly 43 seconds, I will feel another one. I am watching the clock, counting down 30 seconds, 20, 10. There, another tremor, exactly 43 seconds apart. It found me. Even here, 1,000 miles from the nearest ocean, it found me. Because there is water beneath Kansas, vast underground aquifers, ancient rivers that flow through stone, and the old hunger can travel through water. I can hear clicking now, faint, barely audible but growing louder, coming from below, from the basement of this building, from the water pipes that connect to the city system, to the rivers, to the ocean. I should run. I should grab my keys and get out of here, but where would I go? It followed me this far. It will follow me anywhere. There is no escape from something that old, something that patient, something that hungry. So instead, I am posting this account. I am sending it out into the world, one last warning before the end. If you are reading this, please believe me. The old hunger is real. It is awake, and it is coming for all of us. The clicking is louder now. The walls are starting to crack. Water is seeping up through the floor, dark water that smells of ancient things, of deep places that have never seen light. I can see something moving in the water, something pale and vast, squeezing itself up through impossible spaces, defying physics and reason in its pursuit of me. This is the end of my account. This is the end of my story, but it is not the end of the old hunger. That thing will go on, feeding, growing, reclaiming the world it lost, and there is nothing we can do to stop it. We should never have gone looking for what was breathing under the ice. We should have left it sleeping, left it buried in its frozen tomb. But we were curious. We were foolish. And now the entire world will pay the price for our mistake. If you ever find yourself in Antarctica, if you ever hear something breathing beneath the ice, do not investigate. Do not wake it up. Just run. Run as far and as fast as you can, because some things are meant to stay buried. Some things are meant to sleep forever. And the old hunger should have been one of them. The water is at my ankles now. I can feel appendages brushing against my legs, pale things covered in eyes that stare up at me with alien intelligence. The clicking has become a roar, filling my apartment, filling my mind, drowning out everything else. In a moment, it will take me. In a moment, I will join Tommy and Vincent and David and Lisa and Rachel and James and Philip. I will become food for something that was ancient when humanity was young. But before it does, I want to say this. I am sorry. I am sorry to my crew mates who died because of our curiosity. I am sorry to Sarah, who could not live with the guilt. I am sorry to everyone who will suffer because we woke up the old hunger. And I am sorry to you, whoever is reading this. I am sorry for the world I am leaving you, a world where monsters are real and the oceans hide horrors beyond imagination. The appendages are pulling me down now into water that should not be this deep, into darkness that should not exist in a Kansas apartment. I can see it now, the full shape of the old hunger, vast and terrible and beautiful in its own alien way. It is looking at me with 100 eyes, and in those eyes I see recognition. I see memory. I see hunger. This is Aiden, 32 years old, former meteorological technician at the Amundsen Fletcher Research Station in Antarctica. This is my final transmission. This is my warning. The old hunger is real. The old hunger is awake. The old hunger is coming. And there is nothing any of us can do to stop it. The water is over my head now. I cannot breathe. I cannot scream. I can only feel those appendages wrapping around me, pulling me deeper, carrying me down into depths that have no bottom, into darkness that has no end. In my last moment of consciousness, I feel the old hunger's mind touch mine one final time, and I understand. This was always meant to happen. From the moment we found it beneath the ice, our fate was sealed. It let us run. It let us escape. It let us think we had survived. Because it wanted witnesses. It wanted someone to tell the world what was coming. It wanted humanity to know, to fear, to understand that our time as the dominant species on Earth was ending. The old hunger has returned, and it is feeding. The following is a transcript recovered from Aiden's laptop, dated 3 days after his disappearance. To whoever finds this, my name is Dr. Jennifer Walsh. I am a USGS geologist investigating the unexplained seismic activity in central Kansas. We found Aiden's apartment flooded, water damage extending 3 floors down despite there being no apparent source. Aiden himself is missing, presumed dead. We also found his research, his journals, and this account. At first, I thought it was fiction, the ravings of someone suffering a mental breakdown. But then I checked the seismic data. There are breathing patterns in the earth, regular pulses appearing in locations around the world, always near water sources, 43 seconds apart, just like Aiden described. I do not know if his account is true. I do not know if there really is something called the old hunger, but I know the seismic patterns are real. I know ships are disappearing. I know people are vanishing from coastal communities around the world. I am forwarding Aiden's account to every scientific organization, every government agency, every news outlet I can reach. Someone needs to investigate this. Someone needs to find out what is really happening. Because if Aiden was right, if even half of what he wrote is true, then we are facing an extinction-level threat that humanity is completely unprepared for. The old hunger is real, and it is hunting us all.